Margaret Zeller. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the at-risk populations coordinator here at the Public Health Preparedness Program here at the Department of Public Health. Um, I'm not sure if we have anyone who has joined us before, but you may know me from the homeless outreach team and our mobile vaccine clinics that we sometimes will have on the schedule. I'm really excited to have you with us this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. So just some objectives of this presentation. We want to make sure that you're leaving this training with understanding how seasonal hazards can impact safety, health, and your neighborhood. We want to identify common winter weather risks and strategies to stay safe. We want to learn effective skills for preparing homes and vehicles for winter conditions and apply best practices to ensure heat safety to reduce risk. Just to provide a quick overview, if you attended our previous preparedness training, we're going to do a quick preparedness recap. We're going to go over the winter weather in Philadelphia, understanding the signs and symptoms of cold-related illnesses, how to keep warm inside and out, emergency kits, home safety tips, getting your vehicle prepared for the winter time, and MRC efforts and city resources. So just to provide that quick overview, the basics of personal preparedness is to first be informed, whether that's through TV, radio, social media, or our region's emergency text and email alert system called Ready Philadelphia are all great ways to stay connected. Knowing your local hazards, understanding the potential dangers in your area, such as wildfires, earthquakes, and hurricanes. In this particular presentation, we will be focusing on those winter hazards and finally having a plan. So making sure you're taking the time to create a plan for everyone in your household, and this includes your pets as well. So just quickly using the chat function, all guesses are welcomed. What do you think are Philadelphia's top hazards? Illicit narcotics, severe weather, firearms. Nice. We'll give it just one more minute. Snowstorms, kerosene heaters, terrorism, traffic safety. These are all good guesses. Flooding. Yes. Awesome. All right. So this is the 2023 Philadelphia Hazard Index. So some of those guesses were indeed correct. The first five is pandemic, coastal storms, flooding, localized infectious disease, and a hazmat release. The particular ones that we're going to touch on are coastal storms, temperature extremes, in this case, extreme cold, and then winter storms. So what is our seasonal temperature outlook? Um, as you can see, Philadelphia is in this light orange, which lands us in the above normal temperature outlook due to La Nina weather patterns. However, we are still expecting about 10 inches of precipitation through February. So, what do we all experience being in Philadelphia? Winter weather can bring heavy snow, icy streets and sidewalks, dangerous wind chills, power outages, and of course, transportation challenges. So, winter storms can actually create a higher risk of car accidents, hyperthermia, frostbite, carbon monoxide poisoning, and heart attacks from overexertions. So winter storms, including blizzards, can bring extreme cold, freezing rain, snow, ice, and high winds. These storms can definitely last a few hours or several days in extreme cases, and it can lead to utilities being shut off, such as like your heat, your power. and communication services. It definitely puts older adults, children, and sick individuals at a greater risk. And I'm going to pass it off to Margaret to discuss understanding the signs and symptoms of cold-related illnesses.
All right. Thank you so much, Sonia. Yeah, so with all of this being said, winter in Philadelphia and of course the corresponding storms, that naturally does put many of us at risk for cold-related illnesses. So I'm particularly going to be talking about two of them. One of them is a bit more common, frostbite, and one of them is a little bit less common depending on exposure, hypothermia. But let's get started with frostbite. So frostbite technically is an injury. It's caused by a part of the body freezing. Let's say that you are outside for a long period of time, you're snow shoveling or otherwise. That is an instance where you would be at generally more increased risk. How you can tell that you're experiencing frostbite is generally you will lose feeling or color in the affected area. It does tend to show up a bit more commonly in extremities. So think like your hands, your fingers, your toes. Tip of your nose is also relatively common. What it can look like is, again, you have a lack of feeling in the impacted area. And as I said, the skin that has the frostbite tends to be a bit discolored or pale. It's cold to the touch. Some would describe it as a little bit waxy. And if you notice that you're experiencing frostbite or someone who is with you is experiencing frostbite, the best ways in order to prevent or mitigate that would be, of course, to get to a warm place, whether that be indoors or otherwise, especially remove wet clothing, because that can really exacerbate frostbite if it's cold and wet. And then to also warm the affected area in warm water, not hot, as well as use warm blankets. Warm beverages are always a good move. Certainly not alcohol because we're scooching into the land of dehydration. And then, of course, make sure to handle the area gently. That tends to be a bit more of a misconception just because, you just don't have feeling in, say, your hand. So you want to try and bring feeling back into that area, but you don't want to rub it severely. You want to be quite gentle with it. Sonia, next slide. All right. And the other condition I wanted to discuss is hypothermia. So this is not uh, a laughing matter as a condition. It is a true, sincere medical emergency. In the summertime, we'll often talk about heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Well, this is precisely that, just in the opposite direction, in cold. Basically, hypothermia is when the body is expelling or losing heat faster than it can produce it. Naturally, this can cause low body temperature and put you at risk of severe illness or hospitalization or otherwise. And you can really pick up on this as not only just, someone's cold, but they're shivering. And often that shivering is quite uncontrollable for that person. Numbness, that is relatively similar to frostbite or weakness, but also this can impact somebody's judgment. It can kind of make them seem like they're a little zoned out or a glassy stare, or just having impaired judgment. Keep in mind if one's body temperature is quite low, then you can imagine that blood flow is a little bit slower, so that can impact that. If you or someone that you know is experiencing hypothermia, as I said, this is a medical emergency, so that would warrant calling 911. In addition to that, of course, getting the person to a warmer place, similar to frostbite, getting rid of that wet clothing, anything that is making it harder for the person to maintain their body heat or just retain heat. Again, warm beverages, no alcohol, again, dehydration. And while frostbite, you're looking at the extremities, say a hand or a foot or a nose, the goal with hypothermia is actually going from the inside out. You want to start from the center of the body first and then move outwards because that will help with blood circulation as you move further to the extremities. And next slide. And I believe Sonia will be taking it from here, covering keeping warm both inside and out.
Yes. Thanks, Margaret. So how to stay warm indoors. So what can contribute to how warm or cold you feel? That's going to be how old you are, your age, health status, eating and drinking habits, and how you choose to dress indoors, whether you're choosing to just put on a bulky sweater or whether you're choosing to put layers on. We want to make sure that you are keeping warm inside by setting your thermostat to at least 68 degrees or higher. Dress in those layers of loose, lightweight clothing and stay with a friend or a relative if you do not have access to heat in your living space. Another thing we suggest is weatherizing your home. You can do this by getting rubber door seals or reusable ABS plastic or aluminum bubble foil. This essentially prevents heat from escaping and reduces drafts. You can also purchase an indoor window insulation kit that basically seals your windows, eliminates condensation, and again, stops those cold draft points. Most kits include a plastic shrink film or two-way tape to cover the windows or foam and outlet covers. The tape is used to securely hold the film in place, and you can use a hair dryer to shrink that film to create that smooth, tight seal. This is also a great way to save on your utilities because you're preventing that heat loss. Some DIY insulation hacks that I have definitely done in my home is when shopping around for curtains, I usually opt for thicker curtains. As you can kind of see, this young lady in this picture is using a blanket, really anything to create that barrier. You can also utilize duct tape and a rolled towel or blanket if you can point out those draft points. And then as well, you could use caulk to kind of fill those gaps around the windows or door frames. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration had this really cool graphic that Margaret found, and it basically shows how to layer up for specific temperatures. So, dressing in warm layers, just, check the temperature before you leave your house. If it's chilly, it's suggested 1 to 2 layers. Warm shoes. If it's cold, 2 to 3 layers. You're adding gloves. You're maybe putting on your, cozy pom-pom hat. Having wool socks. For extreme cold, that's when you're definitely doing the extreme layering of 3+ layers. Your pants are layered, you have waterproof boots, snow boots, you have that um, scarf and hat. So, like Margaret said in a previous slide, we want to make sure that you're staying dry because bodies lose heat faster in damp clothing. And then finally, just covering your mouth. Covering your mouth with clothing items like a scarf protects your lungs from extremely cold air and helps you feel warmer. And of course, our furry friends. So, winter pet safety. We want to make sure that we're providing our pets with a warm resting spot. We want to make sure that their beds are not in those draft points that we talked about or on the cold floor if possible. Um, Make sure that you are bringing your pets inside during cold weather. If you do have a cat that roams outside, we want to make sure that for the season that they're indoors. If you're taking your dog for walks during, the sleeting, the snowing, it's just best to towel dry your pets after a walk. And if they wear really cute raincoats, or sweaters, that they're changing out of that damp outerwear. Signs of hypothermia in pets. I'm sure you all know your pets well, so you can definitely sense something is wrong if they're whining, shivering, anxious, slower than usual, or stop moving. If they seem weak or start looking for warm places to burrow, it's best to then take them to the vet immediately. Keep them hydrated. Ensure that they have access to fresh, unfrozen water. Protect those paws. Salt, antifreeze, and other chemicals that are used to melt the snow and ice can actually irritate your pet's paws, and it can be toxic if ingested. A lot of pets have specific grooming habits, so we want to make sure that they're not, licking their paws with all of that stuff on there. So it's best to wipe their paws after a walk with a damp towel. And the ASPCA also notes that you can use petroleum jelly or booties to protect sensitive paws. It's also important to be aware of heating hazards. So we want to make sure we're never leaving our pets unsupervised with space heaters, heating lamps, fireplaces, or electric blankets, as they can cause burns or start fires. And then finally, just checking for hidden dangers. Philadelphia in particular has a lot of stray cats, and a lot of the times those cats will seek warmth in vehicles. So it's really a great idea to just, give your hood a quick knock to kind of scare any critter out of there. Um, and then if you are walking at night, as we all know, daylight savings, it gets darker so quick. So make sure that we're being safe by wearing reflective clothing so that oncoming traffic can see you while you're walking your dog. Okay, continuing on to snow shoveling. So, what are the best practices? So, this is a quick checklist. We want to make sure that we're wearing clothing in layers, that we have a snow shovel, preferably ergonomic, that we have salt and water and fluids nearby. So, it's best to push and not lift the snow. If you do lift the snow, try to use your legs, bend at the knees, and not your back. We don't want you throwing snow over your shoulder. Um, this can cause overexertion. Um, Cold weather in general puts an extra strain on the heart. So we want to make sure that you're taking breaks often. If you feel yourself sweating, you're getting a little damp, just take some time to drink, plenty of fluids, make a hot chocolate or tea. Don't smoke or eat a big meal beforehand. And this is because we want to make sure our blood is flowing. Try to shovel early. I know it's tempting to kind of wait until the snow is fully on the ground and it's stopped flurrying, but it's really best to clear the light snow rather than waiting for it to really just pile up. In this case, you can then just shovel and salt it, and then that will prevent it from uh, freezing, and will also melt any snow that falls after that. In Philadelphia, homeowners and landlords and tenants must clear a path at least 36 inches wide on the sidewalk within 6 hours of a snowfall. So if you notice, maybe your neighbor hasn't done it, or you have elderly neighbors who might not be able to do so, if you do have the capacity, try helping out your neighbors if you can. Um, about 1 pound of salt covers 100 to 200 square feet. And then if you do own a vehicle, be sure not to park in snow emergency routes. You can definitely find out what those routes are on our city website. Okay, now I'm going to pass it back to Margaret to talk about emergency kits.
All right. Thanks, Sonia. All right. So, as Sonia mentioned, we're going to be talking about emergency kits. For those of you who joined us for the personal preparedness trainings from a little while back, this may sound a little bit familiar, discussing emergency kits and go bags. So that's what we're particularly going to be focusing on. When it comes to any kind of emergency or a storm, full stop, it's important to have an emergency kit or a go bag. Basically, these kits and bags contain supplies that you are very much going to need in the event an emergency of some sort comes our way. But we're going to be focusing a little bit more specifically on what this looks like in the wintertime. So there is, the basic information on maintaining these emergency kits, making sure that you have the correct supplies in a kit before a storm hits. So, just making sure that you have enough batteries, that you have the right amount of bottled water. That'll be on the next slide, don't worry. As well as expiration dates on food. Nothing better than pulling out a can of ready to eat soup and you're very excited about that when it's cold and it's a year expired. I'm definitely not talking from personal experience here, but it's just important to check all of those various things, especially for things like medicine as well. And then along with the expiration dates, just making sure that you have enough for everybody in your household. So as we said in the personal preparedness training, and we'll continue to reiterate in this one, the name of the game is having enough food, water, and medication for at least 3 days per person. And yes, that includes pets as well. And additionally, bringing the extra layer of making sure that we're staying warm in the wintertime, especially if heating becomes more of a concern. Finding a space in your home that has, comparatively speaking, fewer doors or windows. Just keep in mind it's a lot easier to warm a smaller space than a bigger one, or a space that just has fewer windows. Next slide, next slides. So yeah, thank you. Um, as for what exactly goes into these emergency kits, specifically if we're talking about what to have in the winter time, as I said, the important thing to keep in mind is 3 days worth of supplies per living thing. So, for example, the first bullet is a gallon of water per living thing per day for 3 days. So, for example, in my household, there are 2 people and 1 dog. So that means I'm going to need 3 gallons of water for each of us for 3 days. So that's 9 gallons of water. So we're going to need some space for that. But just to help you kind of visualize what your specific household's needs are going to be. Additionally, that goes for ready to eat non-perishable foods, things that are easy to pack and don't need refrigeration. A first aid kit, including a 3 day supply of essential medications. If anyone in your household has medicine that they're definitely going to need on a more consistent basis. Changes of clothes, warm clothes, flashlights, extra batteries, as well as other items that would be really important in the event, let's say it's a really, really big snowstorm, and the power goes out, but you still want to figure out what's going on out there. When is the snow going to stop? Having a battery operated or a wind up radio is a really great way of still being able to keep tabs on what's going on, even if there's some power and utility discrepancies in your home related to a storm. Additionally, personal hygiene items, along with other important items such as scissors, duct tape, plastic sheeting. That's really great for some of those insulation techniques that Sonia mentioned earlier on, as well as just some tools, especially wrenches, pliers to turn off utilities. Nothing better than frozen pipes in the middle of January. And next slide. And then finally, everybody's life is different. Everyone has different levels of needs. So it's also important to keep track of additional considerations. So Sonia very eloquently discussed some of the needs that pets and animals may very well need during a storm like this. As I said, I personally have a dog in my household, so make sure that we have my dog's light reflective coat and her booties, as well as enough food to make sure that she'd be okay over the coming days, as well as backup medical equipment. Let's say that you have an older adult in your home and maybe they need mobility aids, hearing aids, oxygen tanks. Maybe some of those items need charging, such as a blood glucose monitor. It's just making sure that you have the batteries as well as the backups for those medical equipment so there isn't a potential gap in their care. Then, of course, you have to think about children of varying ages and sizes. That could range from baby supplies, winter clothing, items that are really comforting, like a stuffed animal or a toy. And then, of course, we have to think about access and functional needs. Again, this goes into mobility aids, sensory items, even communication tools, etc. You and your loved ones know your household's needs best, so I will leave that to your judgment to figure out what you personally would need, but it's just important to keep these in mind. And I think next slide, I think we're going to be scooching on over into home safety.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to be going over the home safety. Just to begin, utility management, we want to make sure that we're keeping the water flowing. So If you know you're not going to be using those faucets, we want to make sure that we're shutting off outside water faucets from inside valves. To drain these faucets, we want to make sure that we're leaving the outside valves open. Pipes most at risk for freezing are those without insulation running through unheated spaces. So it's best to let water trickle overnight in extremely cold weather to keep those pipes from freezing. You can also wrap your water meter and its connecting pipes with insulation or open up cabinet doors under your sink in your kitchen or bathroom to let that warm air circulate. We want to make sure that we're protecting vulnerable home appliances or devices from electrical surges due to power outages. So, like we talked about, if your power is to go out unexpectedly, if you have any really expensive gaming equipment or this brand new TV that you got, make sure you have a surge protector or that you take a few minutes to just unplug those things. All right, home heating safety. Want to make sure that you guys are staying cozy without the risk. Fires happen every year due to faulty heating units, furnaces, boilers, hot water heaters, and clothes dryers should be working properly and ventilated. Make sure that you have a professional come out and inspect your heating sources to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. If you do have concerns about your living space and whether or not those carbon monoxide things are up to code, you can definitely reach out to the Department of Licenses and Inspections if you rent at that phone number. We also want to make sure that you use electric heaters with extreme caution to prevent shock, fire, and burns, and never leave fire or heating sources unattended. So, fireplaces. Chimneys should be professionally inspected annually, and they should be cleaned after burning approximately 1 cord of wood. Always open the damper completely before lighting a fire. We want to make sure that that smoke has a place to go. Only burn dry, seasoned hardwood. We don't want to be using trash or cardboard or any plastic for those fumes. Never use lighter fluid, gasoline, or other flammable liquids to start or enhance a fire. They are really hard to control, so it's just best to never use them. Want to make sure you have a metal screen in front of your fireplace to properly prevent sparks from flying out, and to offer some protection for those pets. Ensure your fire is completely extinguished before leaving the home or going to sleep, and only close that damper when the fire is completely out. So heaters and portable heaters. So your heaters, like I said, they should be inspected and serviced before the heating system begins for the season. Try to keep the area around the unit clear and clean those filters regularly. If you do have pets, myself included, you might have to clean those filters a little bit more frequently than someone who doesn't have pets because a lot of that pet dander and hair can kind of get into those filters. So we want to make sure that the airflow is moving. Make sure that flue pipes, vents, connectors, all that good stuff are inspected and cleaned and in good repair. In terms of portable heaters, we want to make sure that our heaters are at least 3 feet away from anything. That includes the furniture, wall, bedding, clothing, pets, and of course, turn off space heaters when you're out of the room. We want to make sure that we're never using heaters to cook food, dry clothes, or heat up water. We want to make sure that we're placing those cords above the carpet, not under furniture. And then we don't want to use extension cords with electrical heaters. They should be plugged directly into the wall. So carbon monoxide and winter weather. So carbon monoxide is an odorless and colorless gas that can cause sudden illness and death if inhaled in large amounts. So household appliances like gas fires, Boilers, central heating systems, water heaters may be possible sources of carbon monoxide. Other sources include leaving a car running in a closed garage, burning charcoal in a poorly aired environment, and fumes from certain paint removers and cleaning fluid. So carbon monoxide poisoning looks like the flu without the fever. So you may be experiencing a headache. You may feel fatigued, weakness, and dizziness. You might feel nauseous or have shortness of breath. Severe carbon monoxide poisoning is similar to that hypothermia where you have mental confusion, vomiting, loss of muscular coordination and consciousness, and then in some cases, even death. We want to make sure that we're preventing this by installing battery operated carbon monoxide detectors, and these will definitely alert you of the presence of the gas. It's best to test these detectors and change the batteries regularly so that they are in working condition. It's also best to know that to never use gas-powered equipment indoors. So if your power does go out, don't use the gas range or the oven or a portable gas or kerosene space heater to heat your home. If you do want to use a kerosene space heater, make sure to do it outdoors. And then just knowing these symptoms can allow you to be more prepared to recognize this in the moment. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Margaret, and she's going to talk about getting your vehicle ready.
All right. Thanks, Sonia. All right. So we're going to be talking about, all right, so we've talked about what we want to have in our go bags. We've talked about what we want to have in our homes. We've talked about how we want to heat our homes. So now let's talk about what do we do with our vehicles. Again, going Harkening back a little bit to our personal preparedness training, we talked about having a go bag and emergency kits. Well, it's also important to have an emergency travel kit in your vehicle. There is nothing worse than potentially breaking down and you don't have any supplies. So especially on really, really icy roads and it's snowy. And not only are you stranded, but also keep in mind it's a good chance, a tow truck or someone who wants to come and get you can't just because the weather is really bad. So as for what to have in these kits, it's good to have, well, especially if it's dark, flashlight, extra batteries, a charger if you do have that for devices. Again, we talked about battery operated and wind up radios to have in your emergency kits in your home. Also in your car is a great idea. And then if you think about the specific needs of your car as well, jumper cables, other ways in which you may be able to get somebody's attention, especially if the weather is really bad or visibility is very bad. A really great way of being able to navigate that is through emergency flares, as well as distress flags are really helpful, especially if it's very snowy. Having rope or chains for towing, as well as having chains on your tires, because nothing better than skidding off the road. Additionally, always good to have first aid supplies on hand. And then, of course, warm clothing. That goes for hats, mittens, and the like. I also would personally advocate for having an extra blanket or two just to have in your car as well. Next slide. And then that's what is good to have in your vehicle, but then it's also just, taking care of your vehicle as well. If you know that a snowstorm is coming in and you know that you're going to have to drive and it's unavoidable, just make sure that you check your vehicle to make sure that you're good to go. Make sure all of your fluid levels are good. Your wiper fluid, make sure it's a wiper fluid that's conducive with below freezing temperatures. Check your wiper blades, winter wiper blades. Those are very, very nice to have, especially if you're in the middle of a storm. Just double check and make sure that your heater and specifically your defroster are working properly. Same goes for your radio. Make sure that all the lights are good. Nothing better than having a bad headlight or tail light out, and visibility is bad due to a snowstorm. And then, of course, making sure that your tires are good to go, that the tread is still perfectly adequate for travel, that they're inflated. And then again, I'm just going to reiterate snow chains and or snow tires. Next slide. All right. And then Sonia is going to cover some of our city systems and resources.
Okay, thank you. So we're briefly going to touch on MRC's past response efforts. So this past winter, we did support the city's Code Blue response. We had some MRC volunteers stationed in those warming centers for at-risk and unhoused populations across the city. We also had MRC volunteers provide medical triage and referral to higher level of care, basic first aid, and help clients to use a basic wound care kit with self-care instructions provided by the Philadelphia Department of Public Health's Division of Substance Use Prevention and Harm Reduction. We also assisted in making those care kits. So we had 16 deployment days. We had a total of 52 volunteers deployed, which totaled to about 245 volunteer hours, which thus saved our city $15,000 in workforce savings. And MRC volunteers were able to assemble 300 to 400 care kits. We are unsure at this time if MRC will be supporting warming centers this year, but if that decision is made, we will be sure to let you know. So staying informed. Feel free to scan this QR code, and it'll take you right to the website to sign up for Ready Philadelphia. That is our emergency text alerts from the Office of Emergency Management. We also have Philly 311, and you can request assistance, including assistance with salting and plowing your neighborhood. And just want to give a quick review. If you suspect that you or someone you are with is experiencing a cold-related illness, warm up, get help, or call 911 immediately if you think it's an emergency. Make sure you're dressing up in those warm layers and keeping your pets safe and cozy this winter. Keep sidewalks and driveways shoveled and salted to prevent injuries. Stay hydrated, especially when doing physical activities like snow shoveling, and check in with your neighbors who may need help this season. Monitor heat sources in your home and practice those fire safety skills we talked about. And of course, maintain your emergency kit and your family communication plan. And all right, I'm just going to do a time check. We do have time to do our Mentimeter. So before we do a break for questions, we're going to go ahead and do this fun interactive quiz. So you can join by scanning the QR code or going to menti.com and using this code below. You can join on a phone or your laptop. I will momentarily paste the link in the chat. So feel free to join. I might have to reshare my screen. Margaret, can you verify if you see Mentimeter or the presentation still?
I see the Mentimeter.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
Cool. So we're going to start off by saying, what are things you and your family can do to keep warm during the winter time? So feel free to use the chat, type in some stuff. Warm clothes. Yes, layered clothing. Warm blankets. Awesome. I just got a new fuzzy blanket from Marshall's. Insulate. Yes. Hot drinks. Yes. My favorite is hot chocolate. Socks. Awesome. Great. Layered dressing. All good. Yes. Just give it one more minute. Not drink alcohol. Yes, it's a vasoconstrictor. So we want to make sure we're not drinking alcohol.
Whoever said hug, I love that response.
Oh, that is really cute. Awesome. Staying in one small room. Right. All right, we'll go to the next one. So how much water should be in your emergency kit for one person? Looking about right. It was a tricky question because it's 1 gallon per day per person, and we stressed that it's 3 days. So this is right. Good job, guys. Okay, true or false? Snow shoveling increases the risk of heart attacks. That it does. Yeah, we want to make sure we're not overexerting ourselves while we're shoveling, right? We want to make sure that we're doing those best practices and taking care of ourselves. Okay, this is a multiple choice. How can you protect your lungs from extremely cold air? Yes, covering your mouth. So that was that slide we talked about. So if you're just having a mask or a scarf to cover your mouth, that can create a small barrier when you're breathing, and kind of insulate when you exhale so that it's not as harsh on your lungs. So this is a little knowledge check. Does anybody remember what Philadelphia's top hazards are? Mm-hmm. We all remember COVID. Some of us would like to forget. Severe weather, yes. Yes, fire, winter storms, COVID, flooding. Mm-hmm. Just give it another minute. Hazmat. Yes, good answer. Yeah, these are all good answers. Wait, go to the next question. Which of these is not a common cold-related illness or condition? This is a hard one, actually. So it is dehydration. So officially, hypothermia, frostbite, and carbon monoxide poisoning are all cold-related illnesses. So although you can get dehydrated while shoveling snow, it's officially not considered a cold-related illness. All right. How often do you need to clean your chimney if you burn wood in your fireplace? Yes. After burning one cord of wood, I did not know what a cord of wood was. So we have that nice picture to kind of give us an idea of what that looks like. Okay. So I know Margaret kind of touched on this, but what are some things that you should have in your vehicle's emergency kit? And again, everybody's kit is going to look different. So feel free to jump in and type some things that you would include in your own car, because that may differ from somebody else. Give us all some ideas. Blankets, yes. Battery operated radio, flares, snacks, yes. I always keeping granola bars in there, something that's not gonna, be non-perishable. Excuse me. Water, yes. Bottle of water, yep. Mittens, gloves, an old sweatshirt you don't really care about, maybe thrown in there. Peanut butter. I love peanut butter, yes. High in protein, good choice. Warm clothes, yep. Chargers, yes. And if you have a power bank, even keeping that in there. Yes, fluorescent distress, yep. Backup battery, yes. Jumper cables, High vis vest, Flashlights, yep. Portable pee kits. Wait, that actually might be something I add to my own list. These are all great answers. Yes. Two chains or a rope. First aid kit. Yes, it's good. Must have. Yeah, maps. That's a really great one, right? If you use your phone or, you know, a GPS and, your phone dies or you don't have one of those fancy in-car GPS systems, having a physical map is always great. That's a good one. All right. Very good. Good stuff. All right. Let's go to the next one. I think that was the AA card. Yes, that's good. Insurance purposes. Even just having copies of your insurances in your glove compartment, always great. I think it kind of touched on all of them. Written phone numbers, yes. Having those copies and storing them somewhere in your car is always great. All right. And with that, we are done. So I'm gonna go back here and open it up for questions. All right. So let's see if we have any questions.
It looks like we have a question from, I believe I'm Alia, um, asking about how to get more involved because it sounds like they are new to MRC.
Nice. Well, welcome and thank you so much for joining the MRC. I see your question here. To get involved or create a so yeah, just briefly, you don't have to be sorry. We will most definitely touch on this. So we have a variety of events that you can get involved with and trainings. We do participate in special events around the city. In terms of warming centers, we just don't know if we will be supporting that this year. So Other things that we do are block captain mailing. We do canvassing opportunities where we get out in the community to um, provide community members with trusted public health information, whether that's extreme heat or in previous years, we've done H5N1 or rabies. Um, what else is there? In terms of what's coming up, we're mainly offering trainings, and our next special event is the Broad Street Run. That isn't until the springtime. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. But feel free to check out our LinkedIn or we usually communicate a lot of deployment opportunities and training opportunities through email or post about it on LinkedIn and in our newsletter. So yeah, thank you so much for
Um,
joining.
it also looks like we do have some additional questions, Sonia.
Yeah.
So the first one is, what are the most common mistakes people make during winter emergencies that volunteers should look out for? Do you want
Most
me to
common, if you want to take it, or we can both tag team it. It's up to you.
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is a very common misconception that I think a lot of people have is, and I guess it's they don't realize it in the moment, is needing to take wet layers off if they're experiencing cold related illness. You know how we talked about that specifically while covering frostbite and hypothermia. People just want to get in the warm and that's the main thing that they're focusing on. It's not necessarily that someone actively realizes in the moment. That's definitely one that comes to mind. Sonia, anything for you?
Yeah, I think that was what I was also going to say. So I think you covered it.
All right, awesome. But it's I guess the big thing is just things that people may not realize in the moment of a particular winter emergency. And this kind of goes into the second question that I see, which is how can volunteers support older adults or folks with disabilities during extreme
Mm,
cold?
I love that
I
question.
love that too.
Do you mind if I take it?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. I always say that we are the city of brotherly love, and it's great to love thy neighbor. So if you do notice that you have a neighbor who has access and functional needs, and like I said, if you have the capacity to shovel their sidewalk. I know it would be really appreciated. I do know that the city does have some resources, but that I think really only extends to salting and plowing the streets. So,
Mm.
yeah, my suggestion is if you got some extra time on your hand, it'd be great to help your neighbor out. Margaret, I don't know
Sure.
if you want to add anything.
No, I very much agree with that. Not to be a bit more anecdotal, but one of my neighbors is an older gentleman and he lives alone. So I make sure to shovel his steps and the sidewalk next door to us. We're doing it anyways, so we do that for him, and then we also will often check on him just to make sure that, he's good on groceries. Does he need anything in particular? Um, Going into any particularly cold weather. Um, and if there is anything that you can go out and get them as well, especially, if there's medications that they may need to get at the pharmacy or something like that. There's nothing wrong with asking if you can grab something for them or even take them should you have a vehicle as well. Again, I'm just a little bit more on the anecdotal side, what I personally do. So I hope that answers your question. And it looks like we have one more or two more, excuse me. What type of roles do MRC volunteers usually take on during the winter emergency responses? Sonia, I'll let you take this one.
Yes. So just to kind of go back a slide or two. Ooh. Just the main things that MRC volunteers specifically did in the wintertime was going to these warming centers and providing medical triage, basic life support, referring to a high level of care, calling EMS if something were to happen, and then showing clients how to use the basic wound care kits that we had MRC volunteers pack up. So that is what we have done in the past. And kind of like I touched on before, We are unsure at this time how we are going to be called to support during this winter if we are to declare a code blue response. Yeah. So sorry that didn't completely answer your question. But yeah, so some things are in the works.
And then I do see one more question, Sonia. It's
Yes.
in the general chat. Are these slides available? And also, how do I access the previous preparedness trainings?
Yes, these trainings are available on our YouTube page. It's just the Philadelphia MRC. And we do send out a recording in the days that follow to everyone who has attended this particular training. You'll get a direct link to our YouTube page where you'll have this full recording available to you. In that case, you can definitely look through our past videos. We do have categories so that can make it a little easier to find some of our past trainings. Yeah, think there aren't any more questions. I'm gonna double check the chat. Thank you for providing that link. It's appreciated. So you can go and check that link, and that'll take you directly to our YouTube page. And then I think I don't see any more questions. How about you, Margaret?
I at least don't see any on my end.
Okay.
Um, but I will say that there is an email address provided on this particular slide. If folks do have additional questions, you're always welcome to email us. I will say that Sonia and Satori are very much the experts on all things MRC, so they would be wonderful resources to ask rather than myself. So.
Yes. And feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. We do have our phone number there. So feel free to contact us, whichever avenue you feel called to. And with that, I'll thank you all so much for joining our MRC Mondays. And we hope you have a great rest of your evening. And we hope everyone has safe holidays and stays warm this winter season. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful evening.
guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.